Welcome to another video game travelogue, presented by Gunblade Guys and the Hero with 1,000 Potions podcast. I'm Tyler, one of the podcast hosts. Essentially, this is an audio essay of my moment-by-moment adventure through a video game. It is my personal narrative revealing my thoughts and experiences as I play through it. This travelogue is about my blind playthrough of Nier Replicant version 1.22474487139 ellipses points. I picked this game because Nier is one of those RPG franchises I've heard a lot about, but I don't know the first thing there is to know about the games. Honestly, going into this game, the only thing I know about the Nier series is that 2B is a character in it. It has loose connections to Drakengard, and its signature color scheme is black and white. I figure my complete aloofness to the series ought to make for an interesting blind playthrough worth journaling about. I want to underscore to listeners that this is not a review of Nier Replicant. I am not going to compare Nier Replicant to the rest of the series, I'm not going to rate the game some number out of 5 or 10, and I'm not even going to make a recommendation that you should play it. I am not going to cover everything that can happen in this game. I'm only covering what I did. This is my experience. But only my experience. This is all of my cleverness and all of my foolishness laid bare before you. That might be disappointing for some of you completionists and lore junkies out there, but that's just part of the format. So don't treat this like a guide on how to play Nier Replicant. Treat this more like a video game audiobook or something like that. This is simply Nier Replicant retold as one player experienced it as the game unfolds before them, from beginning to end, or one of its ends, packed with illustrative descriptions that share what the adventure was like for me, plus my thoughts, feelings, theories, some humor. Oh, and this is worth mentioning. Every time I game over, I go into these Shadowlands where I meet these strange spirits that embody all kinds of gaming references. It is literally the strangest thing that has ever happened to me. I'll fill you in on what happened last time. So, Game Over Kid was captured by some unknown assailants. Game Genie said that, whoever they are, they're probably meaning to interrogate her over her ongoing associations with me, a human, and that it would probably be a good idea to rescue her before these forces turn their attention towards me. I guess I am an interloper in these lands. I have no idea what I'm getting myself into, but I do have a bow and fire arrows I can use now. But it only exists in this negative world place. Alright, enough preamble. This is Anima in Exile, a Nier Replicant travelogue. Enjoy! When the game loads, we get a brief loading screen featuring the silhouette of a young girl in a summer dress walking in place in the corner of the frame. Then comes the familiar Square Enix logo, but it's desaturated to shades of black, white, and gray. Then we get the Toylogic logo, also in grayscale, and then the title screen, Nier Replicant, against black. That's N-I-E-R with both the N and the R in uppercase, and R-E-P-L-I-C-A-N-T, followed by VER.1.224744874139, like as if it were the game's subtitle. Maybe it is, or maybe Toylogic feels like being very deliberate about what build they've sent to the publisher. Or maybe there is some in-game reason that this version of Nier Replicant should be expressed as such. I don't know what the word Nier means either, but I suspect the word replicant is rooted in the word replica, meaning copy, duplicate, or a repetition of things. I also know that words with the suffix ant, A-N-T, meaning something like delivering the properties of the word it's attached to, you use something that has the agency of deodor, a deodorant, if you use it at all, stinkies. So we can suppose replicant means something that has the agency of a copy. Can't wait to find out what that means. But honestly, I did know coming into this travelogue that version number 1.2247 and such, that number is the square root of 1.5, so whatever it means, it's Toylogic saying this game is a kind of, sort of, a remaster of the original game, Nier Gestalt, which originally released on the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 in 2010. This 1.22 etc. version released in 2020. Anyways, behind the word replicant is the image of some kind of tablet with runic etchings on it, slashed with a tight metal chain and wreathed in smoke. The whole title screen is set in black and white. We have 0 color so far since loading the game. I'm invited to press any button. When I do, I can enter my name. No more than 10 characters. I hit a little roadblock here because I'm playing this game on my Steam Deck in the Linux desktop mode because I can only record gameplay footage in desktop mode and not in the Steam OS, and I'm finding out that you can't pull up the Deck's virtual keyboard in this state, nor can you connect to Bluetooth while this game is running in full screen desktop mode, and the game has no proprietary keyboard either, but that's fine. I close out the game, connect to Bluetooth keyboard, reload, and type my name. My handle in recent years is Harborym. That's Harborym, but the shorthand I tend to see in places like Discord and in-game chats is simply Harb. That's my name now. My name is Harb. But I know the main character's name is actually Nier, so for listeners' sake, we are going to refer to our playable character as Nier. Let's do a quick copy and replace. Done. A loading screen appears. It's the page of a diary. The stationery is lined and has a soft ivory color to them, and a light copper border of half asterisks lines the top of each page. The diary is open to an entry titled December 22nd and reads, "The snow won't stop falling, so Nier said he'd stay here with me until it stops. He'll probably leave again when it does, so I kinda hope it snows forever." The writer does not identify itself. A cutscene begins with snow falling down over a wintry, modern-looking city that looks barren of all life. The developers also draw a transparent letterbox over the top and bottom sides of the screen as well, which focuses my attention as the scene plays out. The music is a haunting church-like choir, and I feel like this shell of a city met with some sort of cataclysm which has rendered it a hallowed land of the dead. These shots of a dead, quiet city are intercut with select developer credits, particularly creative director Yoko Taro, famous for his work on the Nier series and the Drakengard series before that. Then, a title card, white letters against black. Summer 2053. Seems awful wintry for it to be summertime. The camera eye enters a destroyed convenience store and closes in on a young boy. He's dressed head to toe in dark layers and has a cloth hood pulled up over his head. His head is down and his arms are crossed over his pulled up knees, like as if he's crying or hiding. He holds a long metal pole in one hand and something calls out to him saying, "Take it and save, ... all I ask, ... is your ... Go on, take my power. All I ask is your ... He looks up. We can see he has not quite shoulder-length white hair that brushes over his eyes and frames his face within the hood. He kicks a book away from him, cursing it. The book slides across the floor, and we can see it is a thick tome of some kind of importance, and its cover bears a metal plate that has runic etchings and is embossed with some sort of circular feature in the center. He hears a sound and scrambles to his feet. 2 strange creatures are coming towards him. They look like anthropomorphic bands of runes. Imagine a human-like figure, stretch it taller by a third, make it invisible, and then wrap it in masses of unrecognizable runes that glow dull yellow and black that spin, swell, surge, and flow around the creature's empty frame. There's 3 of them here, and they lumber ponderously as they walk, and each hold a long sword that's also made of glowing bands of dull yellow and black runes. The game teaches me basic controls, and we are in combat. I swing my pipe at them, dodging their slow but heavy blows. Blood spurts when he strikes them, although they don't look like they have any flesh to me. And when the boy finishes them, they fall on their backs and writhe as they vaporize into black smoke. When they're all gone, we hear a young girl coughing behind a destroyed shopping aisle. She wears a dusty blue parka and has the hood pulled up. She has white hair too. She says she'll try to stop coughing so we don't alert any more monsters, but the boy says he'll make sure none will come near her. He says her name, and she continues to cough. Yonah, that's Yonah, and implores her not to touch that book as he goes out to look for something to eat. Whatever she has, it's probably more than a cold. She seems very unwell, and the boy feels exceptionally caring for her. 3 columns of smoke appear inside the destroyed store's main entrance, and more rune monsters emerge from them. As the boy dispatches them, he wonders how many more are going to keep coming. More and more emerge from columns of black smoke, and one smashes him to the ground. Things are looking grim, and the boy begins crawling towards the book. Need more power, he says as he strains himself to crawl towards it. Need to protect Yona. When the boy lays a gloved finger on the book pops with a red spark and begins wafting black smoke. Now there's 6 or 8 more rune monsters idling outside the store, and then the interior of the store shines with a red, otherworldly light. Then a giant magical fist, surging with twisting cords of energy-colored blood, red, and black, crashes through the storefront. The fist is turned upwards like it's completed an uppercut, and the diameter of it is about as wide as these monsters are tall. The arm it's attached to extends maybe 30 feet out of the storefront and into the parking lot. And now that we have a wider shot of the lot, we can see that it's enclosed in concrete partitions and broken chicken wire gates. The fist relaxes and it retracts back into the store. The root of the magical arm is the book itself, which is now floating quietly aside the boy. The book is open to an unknown spread and is radiating gentle waves of red energy. The book reels the fist into its pages and then closes on its own. "Stay away from my sister!" the boy cries out. A moment ago he looked helpless, but now he looks dangerous and ready for a fight. There are 2 bars on the upper right corner of my screen. The green bar is my health, the blue bar is my mana. When I take or deal damage, no numbers appear on my screen. I simply estimate on how much health an enemy or I have, or how much damage I deal or take, by monitoring how many swings it takes, or how far my health bar has slid to the left. It makes for a pretty clean battle UI, honestly. Looking at you, Xenoblade. The boy and the book engage in combat with increasingly dangerous waves of rune monsters. The book hovers over the boy's shoulder throughout combat, and I can now press buttons that cast the book's magical abilities, and I learned several of these as the battle plays out. Each ability can be charged up for an additional effect. Here are the abilities. Dark Hand manifests the red and black fist we saw a moment ago, which smashes enemies directly in front of the boy. When charged up, extra, smaller fists appear, which I think is dealing greater damage or knockback. I can't really tell. Dark Blast fires a continuous stream of small red and black missiles in any direction I please. Individual missiles don't deal very much damage themselves, and when charged up, a volley of additional red missiles seek out targets within range, but also don't deal very much damage themselves. Next skill, Dark Execution. A long row of long red and black spikes pop up directly in front of and behind the boy. Enemies caught on the spikes are temporarily impaled on them. Depending on how long you charge, the row of spikes may also spread out into 2 more directions at the boy's sides, or when fully charged, produces a pretty good-sized field of spikes around the boy. Dark Lance is like the big brother of Dark Blast. 1 black and red magic missile fires forward at tremendous speed, can lock onto any target, has almost no casting time, has huge range, and deals a satisfying amount of damage. Charging Dark Lance queues up more and more lances to be fired all at once, up to 8, which each hover magically in a half circle around the book as it waits for you to release them. Charging the maximum number of lances consumes more than half my mana bar, but the damage output is so massive I know it is very worthwhile, and I'm thinking it's the best skill we've learned so far. And that's it for abilities. They all consume my mana, but the mana bar automatically regenerates as the fight plays out. I also learned how to dodge, roll, block, and I can even do this special sneaky dodge where I rotate 180 degrees around my focus target in a quarter second. I'm also noticing that when these monsters die, these missiles of black smoke fly up into the sky and are absorbed into the book. There are smaller rune monsters appearing here as well, who fire fields of glowing red balls at me which I have to dodge, although I notice I can destroy these balls with a swing of my pole when they come close enough into range. Eventually, floating monsters appear which I must take down with my ranged abilities alone. I'm leveling up like crazy too. Eventually I'm in combat with a large rune monster in which several normal and small monsters also swarm me, and a dull yellow health bar spreads across the bottom of my screen. When the large monster swings its arm at me, he will send a single curved band of white energy directly at me, Or if he stretches both arms out at me, a volley of 12 or 15 bands of white energy come hurtling towards my general direction. When his health bar depletes, another prompt appears explaining attack gauges. When fighting large enemies, a small circle of glowing golden runes will appear on some part of the body, and a clock hand will begin rotating around that circle. Damaging that body part will cause the glowing runes to go dark. The challenge is to make all the glowing runes go dark before the clock hand makes a complete rotation, or else I will have to replay that phase of the boss fight again. An attack gauge appears over the giant rune monster's head. I fire 8 dark lances directly at it. The creature flies backwards and lands with a thud. I'm level 30 now, and this is just the tutorial. The corpse of the creature vaporizes into black smoke and disappears, leaving behind a puddle of blood maybe 20 feet in diameter. I return to the girl. She's fine and says she found a cookie we can share. She doubles over in a coughing fit and we can see black runes crawl up her face. The boy realizes she's made a grave mistake. The girl says, "You've always been the one helping me, so I just wanted to... ... As the camera pans to a second book on the ground. Or is it the same book? It's difficult to tell. The girl goes unconscious in the boy's arms, and the boy cries out for help into the destroyed city. The camera pulls back out of the store, out of the lot, and towards more destroyed and snowy infrastructure before settling on a pointed tower framed by buildings in the city's central business district as a few more developer credits appear. Then a title card. 1412 years later. 1412 years later. Holy shit, that is a long time later. Let's count this out. The year was 2053. Add 1412 to that. It is the year 3465. Jeez. So that ends the introduction and tutorial. Let's see what happens next. Establishing shot. In a stone cottage with wooden crossbeams holding up the roof. There's a young boy and girl here. It is immediately apparent that they look a lot like the characters we just met, but not exactly so. The boy's white hair is trimmed a little shorter, although a lock or two still brush his eyes. Both of their outfits are very gray and dull in color. He wears a gray or gray-green tunic over a white long-sleeve shirt, white shorts, gray leather gauntlets that go up to his elbows, gray leather boots that go to his knees, a thin, dark headband, and white cloth suspender straps that hold a sword and scabbard up across his lower back. The boy is about as young as the 21st century boy. I'd say about 15. The girl is younger, 10 or 11 by my estimate. She wears a gray or faded green bonnet that wouldn't look out of place in a Mennonite community, and a thin white dress with matching gray-green accents. She wants to join him on his hunt, but he tells her to hang back and rest, and that he'll get her a book from the library when he returns. Her voice is soft and sweet, and she apologizes for being so sick and asks him to be careful before he leaves. I take control of the boy. The cottage we're in is 2 stories, and as we navigate small interior spaces in this game, the camera pulls back and stays in a fixed position at a very flat angle, and we may navigate only a cross-section of the room, navigating only left or right like as if this game were a platformer. The cinematographic effect of these moments is very stylish, like something you'd see in a Wes Anderson movie. I leave the cottage. The stone building looks very old. Outside we see a small clearing ringed in broken brick walls and broken fence posts. Beyond that is a wide and beautiful valley of green grass. There aren't very many trees or shrubs, and beautiful granite peaks beyond seem to encircle the local area. This place must be well above sea level, or somewhere around the timberline, where trees might struggle to grow, but there's grass and mountains aplenty. Somewhere like the Scottish Highlands or the Alaska interior. There are 2 red mailboxes nearby. One doesn't seem to do anything, but the second, part of a broken wall, allows me to save my game. So I save. I guess I'm off to visit a person named Popola at the library. A red X on my map guides me to my next main story quest objective, so I follow it. A wood staircase up a rocky hill takes me to more broken bricked walls, with a large abbey-like structure beyond. It is a large, stately building made of tall walls of red brick, generous arches, and is lightly covered in green leafy vines. The boy throws open 2 large red wooden doors and enters. Again, a loading screen appears, showing another page of a diary. This time it reads, July 20. Devila and Popola came to keep me company today. They even sang a song for me. It was really great. I need to practice so I can sing to Nier when he gets back. Inside, the library opens up into a grand atrium of white marble walls. Bookshelves maybe 50 feet high and warm, natural light coming in from angled skylights higher above. Large, beautiful brass chandeliers hang off Bavarian-style wooden beams. Straight ahead is a locked door that grants access to some room, perhaps the basement. The door is enclosed around 2 staircases that grant access to the second floor, where a loft covered in more bookshelves encircles the atrium. There are 2 rooms on the second floor as well. One is locked and the other is Popola's office. I speak with some of the other people in the library before I visit this Popola. An elderly man on the first floor says there are books here about ancient technologies that are beyond our wildest dreams, and he wonders what could have happened to this world so long ago. 2 children are here too. One says their parents are busy, so they kill time here. The other says he can't read the books because they're written in another language. A young woman in the loft says Popola has tasked her with organizing the books. Wow, just her? There must be 1,000,000 books in this place. For your sake, please tell Popola to hire more help. She wears a revealing off-white top, off-white tights that come to an end at the top of her thighs, dull green underwear, and brown boots. When we get to Popola's office, we get the Wes Anderson flat angle once again. She's a woman in her 20s, has red hair, and sits behind a large wooden desk. A large brown map of some unknown land covers most of the side wall, and 2 grand chandeliers hang above. She greets the boy warmly. When he speaks, I realize that this is Nier. She says someone from the village needs mutton from the northern plains, and would I go help them out? Then, as a personal favor to her, she hands Nier 1,000 gold to buy medicinal herbs for her, and for Yona as well. I say sure, and then she gives me a map of the northern plains. Nier thanks her for thinking of Yona. Back in the atrium, Yona is here. He wants her to just eat and rest, and she says all right, and then Nier leaves. Nier shares some expository dialogue as he exits the library. People say the world is dying, populations are falling, and plague and disease run rampant. But worse, monsters called Shades are roaming the land and attacking humans. My sister is sick, and my only goal is that the 2 of us survive. We are here living on our own, but Popola and the villagers have been very gracious, helping us get by. I stroll around the valley and find a little circular cobblestone square lined by broken brick arches with a stone fountain in the center. A woman in red is playing the lute at a bench next to the fountain. It looks an awful lot like Popola, but this is Devola. She greets Nier warmly, and an old woman watches 2 children play nearby. Farther down the valley, a man tending to a few pigs wonders how much more grazing land we could have if we converted the plaza into more grassy areas. All over the valley there are little white items to pick up, consumable items like medicinal herbs. Hey, maybe I don't have to buy them from someone. There is a river here that courses through the valley, and across a stone bridge on the far end is a stony gate that serves as the entrance to the valley's village. Bear in mind, Nier and Yona's house is well outside of this village. Passing under the gate, I can see that there is another plaza with a fountain to the right, but straight ahead is the main thoroughfare. The only thoroughfare, with several shops selling a variety of wares. There's a garden store selling vegetable and grain seeds, a material shop selling things like logs and berries, and a vegetable vendor that sells lots of seeds. The weapons shop here sells a lily leaf sword for 2,400 and another sword called Beastbane for almost 17,000. I can see weapons have 3 stats: attack power, magic power, and weight class. The Lily Leaf Sword has about a quarter more attack power than my original weapon, called Nameless Blade. It also increases magic power from 0% to 20%. I guess Nameless Blade provides no magic attack power. And it is also a light weapon. Beastbane does about 3/4 more heavy damage than Nameless Blade, increases magic power from 0 to 40%, and has the heavy weight class. I can afford neither of these. I'm not going to share what every non-shopkeeper villager says, but one says the Lost Shrine is a large stone building surrounded by cliffs, and you can find lots of ores there. At least 2 villagers complain about the scarcity of mutton. A few guards stroll the streets, and speaking of guards, the valley has gates at 3 different exits, portals to different lands beyond the valley: the northern plains, the southern plains, and the eastern road. There is a water wheel and a small ferry boat on the village's backside where the stone habitations meet the water, and I fall into the river. Nier drowns immediately and reappears on a rocky shore near Nier and Yona's place. My boy does not know how to swim. Anyways, I pass through the gate to the Northern Plains, and another loading screen gives me another journal page. The same journal page as before. July 20, Devla and Popola came to keep me company today. They sang a song for me too, it was really great. I need to practice when Nier gets back. Alright, so I'm getting a sense that this is Yona's diary. After the loading screen, the world opens to another grassy highland valley. A watery ravine cuts the zone in two, and there are several broken bridge foundations that would have crossed the chasms if they were complete, but they're really high up there. They're like hundreds of feet high. It isn't obvious to me that the bridges are either incomplete builds or if they were destroyed. I suspect that if they were destroyed, it was a long time ago. But there are sheep here, and they will kick you. They will kick the shit out of you. I mean, go flying 20 feet backwards when they kick you. Ouch! So I slay some sheep and pick up some mutton and cotton. No big deal, really. When I open up the map, I can see the Northern Plains outputs to 3 more areas. The Junk Heap, the Forest of Myth, and the Eyrie. That's A-E-R-I-E, Eyrie. When I get the third mutton, a squad of rune monsters appear, but they're actually called Shades, I see. They're small, and they don't give me much trouble, but Nier is distressed that they're appearing so close to the village. When I return to the valley, but I guess I'll just call it the village, inclusive of Nier and Yona's place, the library, the plaza, and the village itself, I get another journal entry. December 1. Popola sent me a new book about the Great Big Tree. I really hope it has a happy ending. There's nothing worse than a sad tree. I give the mutton to the item shopkeep and the herbs to Popola. I return to Yona, who is back at the house. The two talk about a flower called the Lunar Tear, and finding one will make you wildly rich. Maybe if we found one, we could buy the cure for Yona's illness. Title card. Next morning. Nier is off to see Popola again. No idea why, but the library loading screen shows me another journal entry. February 4. I'm gonna make some awesome food for Nier. I better start working on a new secret recipe. I guess Popola's like a quest giver? Apparently, carpenters working on a bridge in the Northern Plains have been attacked by shades and one got seriously injured. Nier volunteers to clear them out. Back in the Northern Plains, Nier fights taller shades with runic swords, kind of like the ones we saw in the intro. I clear them out and return to Popola, who hands me 1,000 gold. Apparently, Yona swung by earlier asking about the outside world. Nier hazards that she's getting nutty ideas from some book. Before returning home, I head into the village and buy the lily leaf sword. Its tooltip says, a narrow sword, once owned by a woman of such impossible beauty that men begged her to take their lives. I'm back home, and Yona's not here. Nier finds Yona's ribbon at the gate of the Eastern Road, so we go that way. The journal entry is the same December 1 entry about the sad tree. Going forward, I think I'll just mention new journal pages when they appear, rather than the repeat ones. The Eastern Road is a very simple zone, just a narrow path through a granite slot canyon that comes to a fork in the road next to a small pond. I take the left fork and enter a new unknown zone. I ascend rocky inclines, higher and higher until I reach a clearing. I see a huge earthen tower connected to a nearby cliff by a rope bridge. The tower rises out of the center of a small lake, which is completely encircled by magnificent cliffs. The tower is overgrown with foliage. Even entire trees are growing out of its stony sides. This must be the lost shrine that one villager spoke of. The path to the rope bridge is lined with broken concrete pillars that still have rusty twists of rebar sticking out of them. I cross the rope bridge without incident and enter the tower. Inside, we can see the shrine is built around an enormous and ancient tree. The place is derelict and long forgotten, but feels infinitely important. The music is telling me as much as well, where a choir sings unknown but profound verses. Nobody is here. Nier ascends the tower by climbing metal staircases that wind up and around the tree, reaching open loft after open loft, adjoined by ornate hallways, galleries, and storerooms. There are shades in some of these storerooms, but they're easy enough. Also in these rooms, sliding block puzzles. Joy! Higher up, Nirvana Dagger. Less damage than the Lily Leaf Sword, no magic boost, but a moderate weight. I ignore the weapon. Several groups of shades and sliding block puzzles later, I find large doors to the outside where a walkway of unsteady wooden planks wraps around the tower's upper reaches. Here we learn to double jump over large gaps in the walkway until we arrive at the top of the tower, a labyrinth of open-air rooms separated by broken walls, piles of debris, exposed nets of rebar, collapsed floors exposing the interior of the shrine below, and fat, ancient tree roots. I slide boxes and double jump around the rooftop until I reach a red save mailbox in front of two large doors emblazoned with intricate diamond and rectangular shapes. Behind the doors is a grand gilded hall. At the end is Yona resting on an altar, and in front of her is a huge spinning mandala of coral and purple runes. And standing before that are two roughly identical, monstrous knight statues. Tall, barrel-bodied, and completely covered in metal. Their heads seem to be inset into their torso, which are each shaped like ghoulish metal skulls. Looking at them closer, I can see one knight has a single spike coming off the top of its head, and the other has two. They each hold one giant lance and an impressive shield. The blades of their lances are each shaped like half circles and are pointed towards one another, together producing the shape of a circle in the eye of the mandala. It's a very nice aesthetic touch. And actually, there's something glowing red in the center. It's a book. After taking out a squad of smaller, gremlin-like shades, I attack the book because I can, and it's blocking my way. A red force field shatters, and white light fills the hall, vaporizing all remaining shades. The book falls to the floor, and the statues change position to an idling state. The book begins to float, and then speaks, "Oh, for the love of all that is holy, would you please stop pounding me?" Another magic book. 1400 years later, huh? This book is named Grimoire Weiss. That's W-E-I-S-S, but since W-E-I-S-S is German for white, we'll be using the German pronunciation where W's are pronounced like V's. And who is this voice actor? Liam O'Brien, right? This voice acting is incredible. Grimoire Weiss speaks like a very loquacious noble lord or a wizened scholar of magic. Whatever he says, it always sounds profound. You cannot help but hang on every word that comes out of this book's non-mouth. But Nier doesn't give a shit about that. As Nier slays more waves of small shades, and as Weiss berates Nier for his petulance, he also boasts that he is a text of the darkest, most arcane magics, and even floats the idea that he can assist Nier in his fight, claiming that his very name brings kingdoms to its knees. Nier asks the book to join, and so he does. Weiss now floats over Nier's shoulder, very much like the protagonist in the introduction of the game, but he has forgotten his spells due to Nier's beating on him a minute earlier. Then the screen goes white, and we have, quote, obtained a sealed verse. Dark Blast. I recognize that name as one of the book abilities from the prologue. I guess skills are called sealed verses. We clean up the last of the shades with sword swings and Dark Blast's rapid fire of red missiles, and then the statues themselves engage us in battle. The one with the red spike has eyes that glow blue. The double-spiked one has eyes that glow red. They slash with their lances, hide inside a white magic bubble, and rocket across the hall to smash me. I deal moderate damage to both until one collapses to the ground and an attack gauge appears over the Hulk. I Dark Blast it until the runes go dark, and then Nier executes the creatures by firing a dark lance, but the red guardian deflects it, and the missile goes spinning wildly. It pierces the altar not a foot away from Yona, and now we've learned another sealed verse, Dark Lance. The red guardian hides in a bubble while the blue one ups the ante by spitting volleys of thick fireballs. But I'm too fast for it. When the next attack gauge completes, Nier racks up a fully charged volley of dark lances. The lances spin around Nier, then point upwards. A globular mass of black and red energy wraps around the lances, condensing them all into one projectile, still black and red, and spinning with runes, which Nier launches with the tip of his weapon. The Guardian with red eyes dodges the projectile, but the other catches the missile in its eye socket. The projectile bores through the entire heft of the creature and exits out its upper back. Blood spurts from the blue eye socket, and the creature collapses. The red Guardian, enrages, summons countless tiny shades, and fills the hall with fireballs. When it runs, it saunters under its own heavy weight, and whenever it swings its lance to the ground, a series of dangerous columns burst up from the ground. Even so, I'm still too fast for it. It collapses again, and I run out its attack gauge again, and this time the glorious killing stroke is a volley of dark lances. The first lance knocks the creature back to the wall, and the others pin it to the wall all over its body. A moment later, the creature's hand crashes to the floor several feet away. The lights go out in its eyes, and it falls forward, apparently dead, but no blood gushes. Nier collects Yona, and Weiss notices the shrine is collapsing. So we flee. After crossing the drawbridge, we watch the rubble bury the entrance. Yona says she was looking for a lunar tear as a means to make us rich and cure her from her disease, and apologizes. Then we notice smoke and black runes appear over her hand. Grimoire Weiss joins us for the walk back home, where he describes Yona's affliction as the Black Scrawl, a fatal illness where strange runic symbols gradually spread over the entire body. According to Nier, Yona started feeling unwell about a month ago. We step out to help her get some sleep and run into Devila. Devila recognizes Grimoire Weiss as the subject of a song of ancients she likes to sing, passed down over the generations. She explains the meaning of the lyrics to the extent that she can. It's about a black book that spread diseases, but a white book appears and saves the world. Projecting Yona's illness onto the song, Nier asks how the white book in the song saved the world, but Devila doesn't know. It's just a song. But maybe Popola knows, so we go to see her. We visit the office and, you know what, she recognizes Weiss too, but the way I'm reading it, neither of these women seem very impressed to witness a floating, magical book in their presence. Strange. Regardless, she elaborates on the legend embedded in the song. I'll repeat what she says verbatim. When the great black book, Grimoire Noir, brings calamity upon the world, the white book, Grimoire Weiss, will appear with his sealed verses. He will then use them to vanquish Grimoire Noir and purge the calamity he wrought. As she explains, the camera pans across some kind of ancient illustration on a scroll. At the left is a large, armored boar holding a black scepter with an open, black book at its side, all resting in tongues of fire. In the center is a small tree, with a huge mandala hovering over it with 3 eerie eyes looking forward. At the right, there are 3 humans. One is female, and she's sitting. The second is male, and he holds a sword and a shield, and the third is an older man. They're all dressed like they lived in the Old Testament times, and all 3 humans are regarding the 3-eyed mandala in awe. There's a village in the background, and beside the man is an open white book. A sealed verse, it seems, is some kind of magic. Nier hazards that if Weiss can collect more sealed verses, maybe he can cure Yona. Weiss asks Popola if she knows where Noir is, and she says there's nothing in it in the records. When Weiss says he knows the shades in the verses are intrinsically linked, Nier dedicates himself to killing as many shades as it takes to find the verses. Popola points out a concentration of shades has been gathering at a nearby village called the Eyrie, and that the village chief may have a clue. Stepping out of the library, I'm introduced to the concept of quests. Go on optional adventures for gold and glory. The nearby village has a few. Go boar hunting, go find a chicken egg, grandma's running low on medicine, my children want to eat mutton, tonight, stuff like that. When we tell Devila we're going out to look for the sealed verses, she says, "That's crazy town." As I wander around questing, I take the other fork at the eastern road and see that it leads me into a vast desert. I derp around there for a minute. I don't see anything really interesting in return. When I do, I get a new journal entry. March 16th. The boy who's always running around outside gave me a super pretty flower today. I wonder what it's called. While I'm out mutton busting, a glowing green ball of energy pops out of the sheeps and absorbs into Nier. I have obtained, quote, the finishing blow tutorial. Press A while a creature writhes on its back to execute it. And throughout the game, lots of these little items will appear after killing random enemies. Some will be tutorials, but others will be words. Words are properties you can add to a weapon, a magic book skill, I mean a sealed verse, or a martial art like dodge rolling or weapon blocking. Words can increase attack damage, magic damage, physical defense, magic defense, counterattack damage, faster mana regeneration, experience up, increased probability of loot to drop, stuff like that. Each weapon, skill, or martial art can equip up to 2 words. I'm not going to get into every time I swap words around, but just know that I generally favor attack damage and chance for loot unless a boss is especially vulnerable to magical attacks or can only be targeted with ranged abilities. I guess this is also a good time to talk about consumable battle items. You can only keep 10 of them on your person at a time, and there is no cooldown for using items during battle. Medicinal herbs are fucking everywhere in Nier's village and grant a 30% health restore. Health salves are rarer and grant 60% health. Strength drops and magic drops double that particular damage type for 30 seconds, and strength and magic capsules double that damage for a minute. Defense drops and capsules cut physical damage in half by 30 or 60 seconds, and spirit drops and capsules cut magic damage in half for 30 or 60. But quite honestly, I don't recall ever seeing a spirit capsule in my playthrough. I find a boar across the bridge that the carpenters recently finished near the entrance to the Eyrie, and oh my god, did I wake the dragon with this one. He rears up on his hind legs to charge me while I'm being harried by smaller shades. You have to roll dash to get out of the way of his charge, but if you don't, you'll take more than half your health and damage. After 2 minutes of dodge rolls, basic attacks, and countless dark lances, one of his charges connects at point-blank range. I'm thrown 20 feet backwards and my health runs out. The screen goes black, and a game over screen appears. Whoa! Well, here we go again. Now, where am I? I'm inside one of those horse-drawn carriages, but there are bars on the windows and the exit is locked. This is a prisoner transport, isn't it?
Finally. Took you long enough. Killed by a boar, huh? Are your reflexes getting slower as you get older?
Hello again, Game Over Kid.
Don't you hello Game Over Kid me.
Look, I know you're angry.
I know, popping in and out of these lands is a lot of fun for you, but it's caught the attention of some pretty bad people. If this wagon is going where I think it's going, they're going to want to know everything about you, this human from another world. Do you have any clue what kind of danger you've got me into? Do you have any clue what kind of evil is at the end of this carriage ride? They're going to make me talk. And I guarantee, when they're done with me, they'll be coming for you.
Who is it? Where are they taking you?
We can't say his name. He's a powerful wizard living in a twisted evil castle. I heard he can cast a spell that can kill you on the spot.
Yikes.
And you need to stop this wagon before it gets to the castle.
But I'm locked in this wagon too.
If I go down, you go down. Your life depends upon it as much as mine. So we need to come up with a plan now.
Well, that's funny because I haven't had a chance to shoot any of these fire arrows yet.
Put those away before you burn down the wagon with us in it, moron.
Oh, yeah, okay, that makes some sense. Think we can break down the door?
Maybe, but there's no way we can get away from the guards. There's like 12 of them out there.
Yeah, the locks on the door look pretty strong too.
Lock? Lock! That gave me an idea. Find a witch named Soft Lock. She will know a spell that can help us out. Find her.
Find a witch named Softlock? Okay, how do I find her?
You meet me when you get game overs, and you met Cheater and Pumpkin Eater when you cheated. Take a wild guess, Tyler.
I'd have to softlock my game? I don't know how to do that. I don't even know if it's possible.
Well, you're going to have to find a way, and you can't look it up either, or else the Cheater kids will show up and ruin everything.
They're the worst.
They are the worst. Now, get out of here.
Boy, that was crazy. So the plan is, I have to find a way to softlock myself in order to meet a witch who will save Game Over Kid and consequently myself from some dark lord of this fictional world. I feel like I'm going insane. Let's just get back to the game for now. Okay, here's what actually happens when you get a game over in Nier Replicant, version 1.22, etc. It's very simple. A hole in a page of parchment bears those two familiar and disappointing words through a beam of light. And then I have the option to continue or exit. I hit continue and I reappear at the entrance of the Northern Plains. I blow past the boar and enter the Eyrie in the zone's southwestern corner. When the zone loads, we see Nier is walking along rails through a mountain tunnel. To the right is a clearing with a little shack refurbished from an enormous broken gas tank. Vice says it looks abandoned, but I can see a wreath of fresh white flowers sitting out in the relative open. We continue along the rail tunnel until it opens up into an enormous chasm. There are several rope bridges that connect one side to the other, large platforms made of wood that rise up out of the windy abyss below, and countless metal structures built into the cliff sides on both sides. They must be houses. Weather vanes and hanging red flags spin and dance in the moderate wind, and at the far end there is a large matrix of wood platforms bearing dozens of large wooden crates. There are no villagers here that I can see, and one house is bronze-colored while the others are silvery. That one is the chief's house. The place looks dry, sad, and lifeless, save for the one blackbird that guides our eye as the camera follows it in the establishing shot, soaring over the vast, majestic desolation. The music here is unsettling. More choir voices, but the tones are like ancient warnings of doom on the horizon. Small and normal-sized shades harass me as I navigate the treacherous zone, crossing rope bridges, hopping between wooden platforms, and ascending and descending ladders. When Nier calls out to see if anyone is here, a voice speaks out from inside one of the metal houses. "Why did I have to be born here, of all places?" it says. Continuing through the zone, I hear more and more voices crying out from inside their tiny metal silo houses. The voices are tortured, paranoid, and fearful. They say things like, "I can't take it anymore. Kaine must not be brought to the village. You're just like her, like Kaine." Or, "Cursed, you are cursed." Finally, I reach the chief's house. He won't step outside to speak with me. In fact, without even knowing me, he tells me to leave the village and never return. At a loss, we decide to return to Popola, but when we return to that clearing with the hut built out of the gas tank, Nier takes a closer look at the flowers. Weiss recognizes them as lunar tears, legendary flowers that embody perfect beauty. And then a voice behind me goes, "Hands off the flowers." We turn around and see a young woman scowling at us. She has white shoulder-length hair, a narrow nose, and thin lips. She wears a very revealing blue baby doll lingerie top with black trimming, matching sleeves, black gloves, black high heels, and her left shoulder and arm are tightly wound in white bandages. Nier wonders aloud why that lady is wearing underwear when black smoke rises out of her clenching fist. We suspect it's a shade, so we fight. The woman dual wields sawtooth swords. She's not very fast, but she has a mean three-hit combo. Not 30 seconds later, she falls to her feet, staggers up again, and encases herself in a sphere of red, magical energy. The sphere explodes, and we fight again, but the only skill I see her use this time is a projectile of blue energy that I found pretty easy to avoid. Our battle is interrupted by an enormous monster. A slimy, ugly, scorpion-like creature glowing dirty yellow and inky black crawls down from the ridge behind us. It has a shark-like face, and there are a dozen fatty tumors hanging off of its throat. Weird curling growths on top of its head, like an axolotl's eternal gills, and hovering over its repulsive mass is a fleshy scorpion's tail, but in truth the stinger looks more like a hand. The girl and I fight the creature. It spews fields of orbs that I have to dodge, and it also creates a shockwave I have to jump over when its fists smash the ground. Striking the hand reveals an attack gauge, and finishing the gauge causes it to regress back up the ridge it climbed down from. Then it vomits eggs, and I burn them all down before anything can crawl out of them. The second time he does it, I realize the eggs spew dangerous red orbs into the air. When I'm close enough to its face, I slash at it, and eventually an attack gauge appears over its head. I button mash basic attacks until the glory kill shot plays. This time, Nier summons a full charge of dark lances, which all go crashing into its neck. The woman kicks Nier out of the way of its final attack, saying, "Stay out of the way!" But it's a distraction. There's another clawed fist that the woman doesn't see coming. The fist crashes into her, but she doesn't go flying. She absorbs the blow. The collision shows no kinetic energy. She should have gone flying, but she's suspended in place. Black runes curl around her arms as she unleashes another blue energy ball at the beast, who roars, climbs up a mountain peak, and disappears behind it. Then she says, "Get back, you two," before she faints. Weiss deduces she is possessed by a shade, living between both the human and shade worlds. Nier says we have to help her. Then we learn the dark hand hidden verse. We escort her to the gas tank shanty, and when she rouses, she tells us to get the hell out of here, but then gives her name unprompted. Kaine. Weiss recognizes that's the name the eerie villagers were fearful of, but she reiterates that the giant creature we just fought is hers to fight, so stay the hell away from it. I take the fight to that boar a second time. A charged up dark hand is enough blunt force to stun it for a second, earning me more time to safely attack it with my sword, and eventually I drop it and earn the boar tusk for a quest. Back in the village, I turn in quests, and when I check in with the boar quest giver, he teaches me how to ride boars, which will help me traverse large zones in seconds. With more than 3,000 gold on my person, I buy maps to the Eastern Road, the Eyrie, and the Forest of Myth. Popola suggests strengthening a weapon at a weaponsmith who operates out of the junk heap. After all, if the shades are coming out in new and giant sizes, we have to be ready to answer that for the safety of the village. En route, Nier explains to Weiss that the junk heap is a ruined factory or some such thing, and nobody knows what it's for. We climb scaffolding up to the top of a broken piece of bridge made of iron and concrete to cross the river that runs through the northern plains. Similar to the Eyrie, rail tracks lead us to a rusty metal gate, which we pass through via a squeaky wooden door. The junk heap is an arid junkyard of twisted metal, where desert rats live among the derelict metal buildings, shipping containers, rail carts, huge HVAC pipes, and other rusty techno-junk as abandoned cranes and smokestacks scrape at a dry, cloudless sky. We find the weaponsmith is staffed by two brothers, the older, Jacob with a K, and the younger, Gideon. They say they think the heap used to be a military base, and that there's a lot of good scrap materials inside the main building. They'll upgrade Nier's weapon for him, but they'll need 3 titanium alloys from one of the dangerous buildings in the heap. Also, their mom has been missing for 7 days, so keep an eye out for her too, would ya? The path behind the weaponsmith terminates at a huge, derelict factory, where a cityscape of rusty and sand-scoured smokestacks, pipes, platforms, and rails frame the shape of an imposing yet abandoned building farther back. I go in. Inside is a facility with lots of halls, doors, and side rooms. The halls are mostly concrete with rusty iron bars protecting machines inset into the wall, some of which have moving parts. Others gutter some kind of gas. The floors are concrete and metal grating. Some of the side rooms convert the camera to a fixed top-down perspective, constraining the gameplay to a classic Zelda-like top-down action-adventure complete with more sliding block puzzles. Some doors are locked, and other doors will only open after I defeated all enemies inside the room. Some cleared rooms spawn a bomb which Nier must pick up and toss at destructible gates before they blow up in your hands. The enemies here, though, they're not shades. Hostile robots roam the rooms and sentry turrets pop out of tubes built into the floors. The robots are squat machines with headlamp-like eyes that frame a small, turning satellite dish. They can produce a fat beam of electricity in front of them which makes Nier go flying backwards on his ass if he touches them. Other robots spray a volley of dangerous red orbs, and they all explode when they die. I'm interpreting a fourth wall break in the idle banter between Nier and Weiss as they navigate the halls. Nier thinks how nice it would be to simply warp back to the weapon shop after we acquire the titanium alloys. But Weiss thinks it's a bad idea because the sages that studied the magic tended to explode into giblets when they crash into something in their path. Funny joke, but I feel like this might be Toylogic making an admission to the player that, although they could give you fast travel in this game, we would rather you get around on your own anyways, because we want to give you a gaming experience that is more intimate with the world. I gather up the titanium alloys and upgrade the Nameless Blade, although my baseline Lily Leaf sword remains a hair stronger than it, and I keep the Lily Leaf sword equipped anyways. They're really distressed about their mom being away for so long, and the older brother Jacob even thinks that she's ... Oop, I shouldn't have said anything. Nier feels compelled to help because he and Yona know what it's like to miss their mother. They give me an activation code that grants deeper access into what they called the mountain, referring to, I guess, the abandoned facility I was just in. Apparently Mom likes to take the elevator down there. Nier finds the elevator shaft and uses the activation code to access Basement 1. Down here, halls and rooms look very much the same, and there are plenty of more locked doors until we board a minecart that slowly crosses an elevated rail line as sentry turrets fill the screen with red no-go balls and small floating UFO-shaped guys with red alarms on their heads shoot the same electrical beams from earlier, or more volleys of red orbs. It takes steady aim and a constant stream of dark blast missiles to survive the gauntlet. The whole sequence is top-down, which makes the barrages of red orb balls make the gameplay feel very much like the bullet hell genre. I don't particularly like bullet hell games, but that's what we're doing here. Several more rooms later, red mailbox save point, and I can already see the arena I'm about to fight a boss in. A metal catwalk beyond crosses a vast open room with a gaping abyss below a large circular platform of concrete and grating, and it's lined by more than 20 red alarm lights. Purple electricity crackles across huge technology bays and set into the walls all over the room, and the ceiling is hundreds of feet high, vaulted with pipes and concrete arches, making the room feel like a weird steampunk techno cathedral. When I enter the circular platform, the catwalk retracts, and an automated woman's voice is raising an alarm about my presence here. Appearing before Nier is a huge industrial machine shaped in the relative form of a human face. Egg-shaped, cameras where the eyes would be, protrusion of pipes and vents where the nose should be, silver discs where the ears would be, jaw on a hinge. Its head is attached to the room's walls by a neck of flexible hydraulic pipes that allow the head to stretch forward, pull back, or make small turns. It's joined by two large mechanical hands, each of which have a glowing orange cannon in their palm. All three pieces are painted construction equipment yellow, but dirty, old, and unmaintained. Nier thinks it's malfunctioning, as each hand's fingers and palms fire orange laser beams completely across the battlefield, making jumping absolutely required unless you want to burn through consumables. The fight is on. Some patterns move fast crisscross, and those moments need my undivided attention, but other patterns sweep across the battlefield in generous strokes. Several dark lances breaks the left hand, and the right hand falls away with it inexplicably. Without missing a beat, 8 tubes deliver seemingly endless waves of smaller robots onto the battlefield. When enough of those go down, sentry turrets get their turn. When the turrets are gone, throwable bombs appear on the battlefield and the face returns, alternating shooting a salvo of heat-seeking missiles from its eyes, or unleashing a fat breath of red and white laser death that fills the room with light from its exposed mouth. At first I try to toss the bomb into its mouth before it can unleash the laser, but it's always too fast for me. Eventually, I notice simple dark lances chunk its health bar, so I fire those when it's safe to do so. Explosions and arcs of electricity burst forth from its face, and a moment later the head hangs from its neck limply. A catwalk connects to another platform, and I obtain the Dark Gluttony sealed verse. Using Dark Gluttony allows you to absorb magical attacks. I continue forward unceremoniously into the next room where we find a dead man and woman. Together, Nier and Weiss deduce that the woman is the boy's mother, and the other person, seemingly a younger, wealthier fellow on account of his nice clothes and money in his pocket, was a lover she was seeing in secret. This is going to be a tough truth to tell the boys. We loot a perfume bottle from the mother and return. Back at the weaponsmith shop, and hey, we did teleport back to the quest giver after all. We can choose to tell the boys' mom's in heaven now, or I couldn't find her. I break it to him cold. Gideon calls me a liar and runs out the room, but it seems Jacob was aware of her lover and doesn't fault her for trying to balance her duty to her boys and her heart. We hand Jacob the perfume bottle, and Nier rides the boar back to the village to check in on Yona, who says, "It hurts!" We check in with Popola about pain management because Nier cannot come up with original ideas himself. She recommends a shaman fish whose livers contain a chemical that can dull even the strongest pain. Shaman fish live in the waters by Seafront, a seaside village south of town. We can access Seafront via the Southern Plains, whose gate is just south of Nier's village. The Southern Plains looks an awful lot like the Northern Plains. Vast, grassy fields, rocky outcroppings again. A riding boar is nearby, and yes, you can find sheep and deer throughout the zone, too. We save a man being attacked by shades, and he hands us a new weapon, a moderately weighted sword named Moonrise, but the Lily Leaf sword remains stronger. There's also a strange manor sitting out by its lonesome self partway through the zone. 6-foot-wide spiders stalk the hill the manor sits upon, and when you open the unlocked gate that grants access to the manor grounds, the world's color fades to gray tones until you leave. Something fishy is going on here, but the manor itself is locked, so I continue on to Seafront. Seafront is a beautiful maritime village evoking a sense of the island of Santorini in Greece. Whitewashed houses made of stone create winding alleys, with decks and roofs serving as a light parkour course for our hero to traverse. The village is bisected by a canal of water that cuts into the rock wall at the northern end, easily crossed by a large bridge that ascends and descends with a series of 3 staircases, evoking a sense of Venice. The most notable features on the east side is a large plaza and a small harbor, and the west side has a public market, kind of like Nier's village, and provides access to a cove where a lighthouse sits atop a rocky prominence. Both east and west sides have water access, and occasionally you can find walruses sunning themselves on the beach. But the city's most unusual detail is far out into the sea, where more broken bridge foundations rise up out of the water, like the ones we saw in the northern plains. Weiss uses his powers of intuition to locate a fishing expert, which draws a new X on my minimap, and that takes me through the market. The vendors sell the same kinds of items that are sold in the market in Nier's Village, but typically have a few more items that Nier's Village does not. However, there is a unique vendor here, one that sells fish bait. We speak to a fishing expert, an elderly man staring off into the sea. He says you can get shaman fish by dropping a line over at the beach by the lighthouse, and gives us a spare rod and lure. I go fishing by the lighthouse. This particular minigame involves correctly yanking back on the control stick to hook the fish, and when it's on the line, pulling the stick in the opposite direction of the position of the fish, thrashing to get free as a blue health bar slowly drains out across the bottom of my screen. Falling out of coordination with the fish's movements will lose the fish, and if we're fishing with live bait, the bait too. Typically, you can yank back on the rod when the bobber comes down, but at least one of the more challenging fish requires you to pull back during the nibbles before the bobber submerges. Different fish can be located in different bodies of water throughout the world and may only be caught with a specific lure or live bait, have different behavioral patterns, and varying sizes of stamina bars. Fishing has fail-state items too, like seaweed or rusty bucket, so time can add up if you run into a spat of bad luck. Nier has a fishing level which can be increased by completing more and more fishing quests that the fishing expert puts us on. Increasing the fishing level reduces the stamina bar of all fish you catch and unlocks the opportunity to catch more challenging fish that would have been impossible without the correct level. Yona's pain reliever aside, fish can be sold for decent money, and some of the smaller fish function as bait for some of the more challenging fish. Meaning, if you don't want to buy upcharged fish bait from the fish bait vendor nearby, sometimes you will have to spend time fishing for bait before you fish for the fish you originally intended to go fishing for. I catch the fish easily enough, but I'm waylaid by an elder woman on my way back to the fishing vendor. She's the lighthouse keeper. She's all over the place, complaining of being tired, accuses kids like Nier of being an inconsiderate jerk, and complains of her illness returning before tasking Nier with retrieving her mail from the post office nearby. We learn the postman has hurt his leg, so we decided to deliver the letter ourselves. She thinks injuring your leg is no excuse for breaking the postman's oath, but gives us 1,000 gold for the trouble anyways. Before returning to Yona with the shaman fish, I pick up a few more quests. None of them are particularly interesting to talk about, except one patron at the local tavern wants to hear the twins sing again. The twins being Popola and Devila. We know Devila is a bard in her own right, but Popola hasn't sung in ages. Also, I didn't know these two were related, much less twins. Then again, they do look a lot alike. We give Yona the raw fish, and God knows what she does with it, but it makes her feel better. Alright, what's next? Visit Popola again. Color me surprised. Popola says the seafront mayor says shades are attacking the Erie again, and Popola wants me to look into it. Before I go, I ask her to sing with her sister again, and she says she will if I can provide the ingredients to her favorite adult beverage to help loosen her nerves. The recipe calls for lizard tails and mouse tails too. Fucking yuck. When I leave the library, the loading screen journal takes a very different shape. The colors are inverted, more or less, white printed letters on a slate-colored page, and it's not written by Yona. Probably not. And it goes like this. Founder Research Report, June 6, 2010. Physical attacks useless. Thermonuclear attacks useless. Unknown particles have been detected. Dealing with the situation will require proving the multi-origin theory. 2010, so that is roughly present day. Thermonuclear attacks, physical attacks useless. What happened out there? What calamity has befallen Earth? Probably the same calamity that affected the wintry town in the prologue. As someone going through this game blind, I have no idea. I barely have time to read this note before it's gone, and when I return to the Northern Plains to get to the Erie, I get another normal journal entry. April 5. I got a letter from Nier today. He's in a faraway town where he can see the ocean. I hope I can see the ocean someday. I bet it's huge. Before I go, I choose to do some farming. There's 15 units of tilled soil just outside Nier and Yona's house. You can buy seeds from local garden vendors, plant them, water them, and then come back in 1 or 2 real-world game days, and they will be ready for harvesting. You can plant things like wheat, peppers, flowers, pumpkins, tomatoes, and much more. I'm expecting some of these will be quest items eventually, but the rest I expect I can sell for a small pile of money. You can also fertilize the soil before planting to increase the yield, among other things. Again, before I go to the Eyrie, I pop in and out of zones all over the place to do more questing, and I get a few more loading screen journal entries as I go. June 6th, today's Nier's birthday, but he's not here, so I just had a party by myself. And May 4th, I write Nier letters every single day. He always worries about me, but I feel fine. When I finally get Popola's gross-ass concoction together, she visits Devil at the local tavern. Everyone finds it enchanting to see them together, but I come from the land of Bon Iver, and I've had enough of sleep-inducing folk rock to last a lifetime. After I've completed several quests, I'm sitting on over 25,000 gold, so I look around for the priciest weapon I can buy. In Seafront, I buy the Beastbane for almost 17,000. It increases my attack power by 40% and magic power by 20%. I buy it. According to the tooltip, Beastbane is a sword that bears a beastly motif. Its short, thin blade seems eager to vanish from sight. And speaking of tooltips, I've failed to mention that each weapon comes with its own story, which progressively unlocks as you upgrade it. For example, the first part of Beastbane's story is, long, long ago, in a faraway kingdom, there lived 3 brothers. The middle brother was a famous general who commanded a vast army. People everywhere were terrified of his troops, for they were the most violent indeed. All of these weapons stories start off with something pretty strange, or extreme, I notice. Finally, I get around to the Eyrie, and I witness Kaine is under attack by shades with glowing pink spheres surrounding them. These are magic barriers. When these barriers are up, they have big magic resist on them. Better off to melee them than use sealed verses. Together, we force our way through the main chasm of the Eyrie, where that scorpion shade shows up, leaping from column to column, terrorizing the village. It roars directly at us when it lands on one of those larger open platforms hovering over the abyss. We take the fight to it immediately. As I'm dodging shockwaves and bullet hell bubbles, we hear Kaine make obscene threats to the creature, like she'll pull its eyes out and piss in its sockets. We know Kaine is pretty rough around the edges, but we're going to find her foul mouth is a major part of her personality. Personally, I don't find it intimidating at all. It's distracting, honestly. I slice up the big shade's hand, explode its attack gauge, and then in the following glory moment, a dark fist winds up and gives it a left hook in the kisser. The force of the punch sends it flying across the chasm and through a mountain wall, but it gets on its 4 legs again and walks along the cliffside to another clearing farther away, its body smashing wooden walkways and metal Eyrie homes as it goes. I slice my way through waves of shades, crossing bridges, walkways, and hostile villages' voices to catch up to the creature. When we arrive, we can see it's grabbed one of those metal homes in its stinger appendage. We dodge tail smashes, shockwaves, and more bullet hell bubbles that spew from the exit vomits or from the thing's mouth itself. An attack gauge appears on the tail and I go for it. When it bursts, this time the huge dark hand lifts the thing up into the air by its tail and whips it at the rock wall. No effect. Kaine splits off to find a flank while Nier chases. I have to destroy maybe 50 bullet hell bubble spewing eggs, each with their own attack gauge, before the next uber dark fist smashes the thing against the mountain wall. By now, Kaine is caught up, and after focusing its arms some more, it vomits white gas over Kaine. Then the thing speaks. Kaine, it's me, Grandma. Oh, how you've grown. It gladdens my heart to see you again. It really does speak with an old woman's voice, although I can't be sure if it's just in Kaine's head or not. Come, Kaine, come to your grandma's side. You've been lonely for so long. So much pain and despair. Why go on living anymore, Kaine? Are you finished yet? Kaine hisses. Then you're going to stop talking, and then I'm going to come over there, cram my hand inside your goddamn bitch-ass chest, and pull out your fucking heart! Woo! Grandma cackles, and the fight is on again. And now Grandma's back is crackling with yellow lightning. Kaine goes on a tear as she's tanking this thing, saying, Grandma would never say that, and I've spent my entire life searching for a way to avenge her death. When it's taken enough hits, the thing goes limp, and an attack gauge appears over its face. After finishing it, 2 dark hands manifest around the creature's head. Nier leaps up into the air, directing each hand's motions with his own. The 2 dark hands interlace their fingers and come down on the shade's head as one, like a sledgehammer. The force destroys the wooden platform it's on and impales the thing on the support column, exploding the platform itself and sending Kaine flying to another platform across the zone. When we reach her, she seems ready to die, but Nier rouses her to consciousness, saving her life. But Kaine says she'd rather die, having just completed her revenge. Weiss chews out Kaine for giving up on life without repaying Nier and himself for the favor of assisting with her vengeance. Nier begs her to help him find sealed verses, and then Weiss chews out Nier for being so ham-fisted with his plea. Kaine relents and agrees to join Nier and Weiss on their quest. Then she picks up her swords and says, mysteriously, "These swords of mine need a true home, but you'll do for now." Creepy! New sealed verse learned. Dark Phantasm. In battle, Dark Phantasm sends a magical clone of Nier forth to deal damage to enemies within range. Charging the ability increases the clone's range. As I play around with it, I noticed that if you send a Phantasm out without charging it, it is probably the fastest ability to insta-channel, and I think even faster missile speed than Dark Lance. But it doesn't do as much damage as Dark Lance. When we collect ourselves, Kaine says she knows of a king who suffers from the same disease as Yona, and that his kingdom has been at work to finding a cure. It is the kingdom of Fasade, Fascade, located in the desert I discovered earlier along the Eastern Road. So off we go. Continued in Part 2.